Thomas Aikenhead. Oh, my Aikenhead. I call him the rebel without a clue. Thomas lived before Unitarianism was officially a thing in Scotland. All we can say is that he rejected the ruling Calvinist doctrine. Still, he's in the UUA's biography database as an important root influence, and his story is really interesting, so here we go. In 1686, when he was 10, the orphan Thomas Aikenhead wanted to be a doctor. He must have had money or talent because at age 17, he was admitted to Edinburgh University. This was the age of enlightenment. John Locke, the father of classical liberalism, was 62 years old and living down in England. The university library also had books by Descartes, Spinoza, and Hobbes. Aikenhead read them, and he talked enthusiastically with his friends about them. But not all his friends were on the same page. One informed on him. In the autumn of 1696, Thomas was arrested and sent to Tolbooth prison on a charge of blasphemy. 5 students appeared as prosecution witnesses. Thomas was accused of having said that theology was a rhapsody of feigned and ill-invented nonsense, made up of poetical fictions and extravagant chimeras. He called the Old Testament Ezra's fables and the New Testament the history of the impostor Christ who learned magic in Egypt and picked up a few ignorant, blockish fisher fellows. He rejected the Trinity as not worth any man's refutation. He also declared that he preferred Muhammad to Jesus, and finally he was accused of having wished, when cold, to warm himself in hell. He was pronounced guilty, and I suppose he was, on Christmas Eve, 1696. So what do you do with a 19-year-old who repeatedly insults your religion? Do you spank him? Expel him? I suppose you could brand him on the thumbs with L for loudmouth. But in the 1696 in Scotland, you killed him. Thomas must have had a terrible lawyer. He was a first-time offender, and by the new Blasphemy Act of 1695, he should only be sentenced to death on the 3rd offense. Anyway, he petitioned the Privy Council for mercy, asking them to consider his, quote, deplorable circumstances and tender years, unquote. On January 7, the Privy Council ruled that they would not grant a reprieve unless the Church interceded for him. The Church of Scotland's General Assembly, which was sitting in Edinburgh at the time, urged vigorous execution to curb the abounding of impiety and profanity in this land. Thomas was killed the next day. So what can we learn from this deplorable story? First, know your opponents. Some parts of the world are run by tough, nasty people. If you live in a minefield, tread carefully. Second, pick your fights. And finally, if you will forgive triteness after tragedy, Thomas might have gone on doctoring into old age if he had followed the wise advice. It's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. Like the Salem witch trials, the execution caused a backlash against Orthodox repression. It probably helped the case of other dissenters. At any rate, Thomas was the last person executed for blasphemy in Britain or Ireland. Scotland would soon become a center of the Enlightenment with such figures as David Hume, Adam Smith, and geologist James Hutton.